This video is about how to checkmate with the queen and king against just the opponent's king, also known as the queen checkmate. Okay, that was done in 11 seconds. And so the first thing to do is break things down into steps. We don't try to calculate. Calculation simply creates errors. What we want to know is a simple heuristic to get the job done, where we don't have to calculate, we just step by step follow the steps. The first step is cut off the board. Let's practice the first step. There's more than one way to cut off the board. So let's go here. That's step one. You can find the king to live in these three horizontal columns, those three ranks. This queen is making a wall right here. Okay. The second step is force the king to the edge of the board. There's a series of geometric movements we can make, which, because of the design of the chessboard, it forces the king automatically to one of the four edges of the board. Without checking the opponent's king, we exercise this maneuver. We repeatedly move our queen a nice distance away from the enemy king until he is forced to one of the four edges of the board. The four edges of the board are the A file, the H file, we see the H vertical column, the first rank, and the eighth rank. Once the opposing king is on one of those edges, we go to step three. So the first step, cut off the board. We use our queen to cut off the board in order to restrict where the opposing king can dance. And here we restricted him to these three horizontal lines, which we call ranks. Step two, force him to the edge. Let's force him to the left edge this time. Place the queen a nice distance away. What does that mean? That means if this queen were a knight, we'll be placing the king in check. You see? So all of these squares are a nice distance away from the king. But the queen can only go to a few of them. Actually, she should go to five of them. Any of these five squares are a nice distance away from the king. Okay, so if we wanted to force him to the left edge of the board, we'd go here. And there's no checks until checkmate. Okay? If we wanted to force him up towards the top, we'd go below the king. As long as we're to the left of the king and below the king, we'll force him either, depending on where he wants to go, to the top or to this side of the board. Let's go this way. Now you want to stay above the king or below the king. You don't want to go back and forth. But for demonstration purposes, I just showed you how we can send them in a different direction if we wanted to. Okay, so the king is on one of the four edges of the board. The king is on the H vertical column, also known as the H file. Next, once the king is to one of the four edges of the board, we want to keep him there. If I force my opponent's king to the A file, then I put my queen safely to the B file. If I force my opponent's king to the first rank, then I place my queen safely on the second rank. If I force my opponent's king to the 8th rank, then I place my queen safely on the 7th rank. So safe placement means we're not going to create a stalemate, and we're not going to expose our queen to capture. So here he's placed to the H file, the H vertical column, so we place our queen safely on the G file. That locks him on the H file. He can dance on the H file until we go to the final step. Step 4 is next, where my king approaches for the finish. So step 1, cut off the board. Step 2, force him to the edge. Step 3, keep him there. We use our queen to keep him there by moving to an adjacent line. Step 4, my king closes in. So my king approaches for the finish now. My queen has done a good job, and so she can now enjoy a well-earned rest until she performs the final move of the game. Therefore, my queen will not move again until she delivers checkmate. Now I confidently move my king towards the opponent's king, being careful not to move upon the rank or file that the queen is occupying in order to keep the enemy king on the edge of the board. So I'm going to bring my king towards his king now. Okay? But if it was possible, if his king were further down this way, then I wouldn't want to move my king to the G file that the queen is occupying, because then that would allow his king to escape. So if the queen is using the G file to lock in the king, then you make sure your king approaches but does not play to the same file as your queen. Finally, checkmate. Once my king has gotten close enough to his counterpart, my queen, which has finished her rest, now has the honor of performing the final act of the drama. Checkmate ends the game. So this is the first basic endgame you have to know. Yes, two rook mate is pretty trivial, as is a queen to rook mate. But this is the first serious endgame that you want to know perfectly. You want to be able to perform it, as I did, with just a minute on your clock and maybe a 1 second increment. You should always play with an increment. And when you do that, when you know it well, you do it without calculation, and it's practically impossible to make an error because you're not calculating, you're just simply following the heuristic right here. Okay, any questions, please put them in the comments. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.